Hello everyone and welcome to a short little video on a Belgium game I've been doing. Now, with 1.9 being more stable and the trade system being more understood, with everything else balanced out in the 1.9.8 beta, which I'm currently on, although I think that's released now, it is, I decided to see how far can you get as a very small country who has lots of available foreign investment in many of the great powers of the world. And the end result answer is you can very much push the AI to reach 1 billion GDP in a single nation and counting, despite its insistence on causing wars every 2 years. So, welcome to Investor State Belgium, where about 6% of the population are capitalists and they effectively control the political system as far as I'm concerned. Where their companies have the best global profitability in most cases, especially the starting special Belgian company. But we're also including high-grade explosives, chapel radios, and craft paper. This is a company, or rather a country, though it may as well be one mega corporation at this point, that has GDP ownership across the entire world, from the Amazons, New York City, all the way over to Viatka, all the way over here to the Far East in Kansai and Chubu in Japan, easily owning great chunks of Europe, though some areas never got to see the light of day for investment. There's even investments in Africa, Australia. It's all over the place. And these areas you see that are fairly highlighted, we own over half of those. There's at least 1 or 2 states in Russia that we basically own the whole thing. This state, right here in Qing, is basically owned by Belgium. So, anyway, GDP numbers. I can't give you a full, cohesive list of the GDP, but by taking all of the power blocks in this list, including our own, and I'm going to scroll a little slowly so you can kind of pause to get the numbers yourself to confirm my math. My math came out to at least 6.5 billion GDP is the global GDP in 1934, with it mainly being the AI getting investment from a small country with various companies that, things like craft paper here and Philip radios being unique, high-grade explosives, they probably didn't take. So we're bolstering a lot of their industries with our own, our own corporations, creating unique prestige goods that can then feed into other buildings such as iron mines here, which are getting a 57% prestige good input. Now, if only there was prestige coal, then we could really kick this into high gear, but you know, there is prestige oil if I could ever get the AI to push it a little further. Yeah, so we're looking at least 6.5 billion GDP, not counting places like Qing and Brazil because they are not in a power block and therefore they're not in the math. So the global GDP could be closer to 7 billion. And the top 50 standard of living after modifiers is at least 18 points or higher. And if we remove the average modifier of, let's say, 1.5 to 2, this would mean the average pop has a middling standard of living in the game by 1934. You've got, okay. Venezuela actually had a much greater economy back then. They kind of got kicked out of the American market and suddenly their oil has collapsed. And true to real-life Venezuela, oil was kind of the backbone of the economy, and when that went, so did everything else. Same with New Granada. So there have been some booms and busts in the game. Germany definitely felt it in the Great War that happened that saw several million casualties. Oh boy, was that fun to document. Even France has over 500 million GDP, and Russia was doing good, and then it got massacred in 2 wars and lost its capital to the Germans, which, yeah, fun. Poor Austria kind of got banged on the head. It's still 281 million. Oh, yes, I forgot to mention, Japan is a great power in this timeline, where they've been so heavily invested into by Belgium that their electric industries are making chapel radios that are then exported by trade centers in the thousands. And would you like to guess who happens to import those radios? I will give you a massive, massive hint. It's small, it's in Europe, and it's the only reason chapel radios exist. Belgium, because oh my god, 645k import revenue. The only reason the weekly balance here isn't higher is because the import exports have been fluctuating, but also the wages have been going up. The average pop working here is affluent after modifiers, but even without those modifiers, they'd be prosperous. This is a nation that, while it does have an economy, has an astronomical amount of imports. We don't produce the groceries we eat. We import most of it from countries who produce those groceries with buildings that our companies own. So, in a way, we're feeding ourselves by exporting the production and then just importing it back in when it's done. We've outsourced the means of production in order to create a very ominous welfare state where 6% of the population are capitalists, the majority are clerks, then shopkeepers and machinists. At one point, the laborers were actually almost less than the capitalists, but then I started getting mass migrations and the urban centers started filling back up because services got expensive. There's not enough people working the service industry. So yeah, the standard of living you see right now is probably not as high as it could be because services are expensive enough that they're actually eating into the standard of living. But this is probably the largest capitalist group I've had in a while with the newest version, 392,000 pops, the 33% workforce ratio. It's very big, it's nice, and of course radios are getting the highest demand because chapel radios act like a pseudo obsession, which means lots of pops want to buy them all. What I basically did here is I got lots of investments through treaties. In some cases I had to pay money for them, in some cases I eventually got the AI to just agree to it. By the end of it, what happened here is a lot of this investment meant my companies could just buy up buildings in various nations, and in most cases, those nations did not make a company that would interfere. For example, France has no company that would buy up its explosive industries or its sulfur. A similar aspect is in Germany, though they've recently established their own electrics industries, so this is less true now. Russia is a pretty good example. They actually established Branabel, which I only now noticed, so go Russia, actually making Baku oil instead of picking the generic company. I genuinely didn't know they had actually chosen to do this, and I'm very happy that they did. Not that Baku oil would be the majority if they could ever become prosperous, but hey, at least they're trying, right? So yeah, this is basically something you can do in your own game as a small country like Belgium, or maybe a more moderately sized country like Spain. You could play this as like a pseudo-tall aspect, even if you're talking maybe France. Don't really expand or make a lot of subjects, but have a lot of foreign investment in independent countries that aren't you. Granted, Britain is probably going to try to conquer half or more of the world anyway, so they're the best ones to invest in. And their insistence on owning half of India might be a partial factor for them reaching over 1 billion GDP. The player is still going to get a much better GDP in the end than the AI, but it is delightful to see that with the usage of the trade system and the new company system, you can actually build the AI up really strongly. And in fact, I would even argue that I could have gotten the Americans to 1 billion GDP, but back in the 1920s, they became belligerent and cut off all of my rights to invest in them, which kind of killed that attempt. That being said, funnily enough, apparently the trade unions are in charge here, the pro-slavery. Do they still have slavery? Oh. Huh. That's embarrassing. Anyway. Yeah. There's not too much else I could go into other than that I just had an awful lot of fun messing around with this. There's a lot of Flemish, and there's a lot of Wallonian now. Several million French pops migrated over at multiple points in the game. Yet France still has a higher population than Germany because Germany lost a lot in the Great War that occurred in the game. What's also funny is I basically have no pop growth. I've been extremely reliant on mass migrations, and you can see from the sudden jumps where these various migrations occurred, because the only states I own, and I will show you this to prove it, are the starting states, and then the Sinai and Panama sections that are just the parts you buy to build the canals. So, aside from buying the 2 canal zones, I never expanded as Belgium. I never expanded. We're in the top 10 of GDP. We have the best standard of living. 11th largest population. I did have the GDP ownership mod on, but I forgot to turn it on for the recording. But it had us at over 700% of our GDP in ownership, so do that math where you will. We basically own over 1 billion GDP, according to that. But yeah, this was really fun. I look forward to doing another wacky kind of run with this, but the game does still have performance issues when you get this late into the game, even if there's less AIs. I think it's just an issue of, again, pop fragmentation and then religious aspects causing more pop fragmentation. I don't know what could ever be done to truly fully solve it. But, it is what it is. Thank you all for watching. If you have any questions about this run, do feel free to ask about them in the comments below. I will be doing a live stream tomorrow, and it looks like it will be the continuation of New Granada. And I will see you all next time.